consideration for the 14 reset and the 15 budget. We always do.
And we're still conservative because...
And we are conservative.
So we're actually running, based on this year's numbers, we're running 4% above projections in terms of our reserves. And in 2015, we're running approximately 8% above projections for end of 2015, correct?
8% above previous.
Previous projections. That's all we can work on because we don't have actuals,
Right.
obviously, for
Right.
future revenues. But the reason why I bring this up is because, again, I'm going to come back to this whole issue of the mill levy, which I had already discussed with the previous with Bruce, who was here earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If we're running higher than projected revenues, all right, and I'm not even going to talk about expenses because, as you said, those will fluctuate. We're running higher than projected revenues, and our assessed valuations are trending higher than we expected. And the numbers that we're getting right now in terms of estimates are based on no growth whatsoever, which I don't think that's necessarily.
I want to be clear. We don't say no growth. No, because you're talking about the same,
Well,
essentially the same residential stuff we're getting now. Nothing huge.
Same trends, but nothing large
Organic
down
growth.
the horizon. What would be the impact of a lowering of the mill levy by 2 mills to start for the 2015 budget year? And the reason why I mention that is because I think we need to start giving some of that excess back. If we are already trending above revenue projections by 4% and 8% respectively, based on last year's projections, why can't we give a little bit of that back to our residents? Even if it's a token 2%, I think we need to start looking at that. We need to start examining that because the taxpayers in this town, irregardless of what's going on over by Wheat Ridge Middle School, where we're already, they already feel way overtaxed from the school district. The school district saw fit to give back mills this year. If the school district can give back mills, I think we can give back mills to the city. And that's just my own personal opinion. But if we're already trending above projections, I think we're still prudently acting in that regard.
So are you proposing a taxpayer COLA? Is that what we
Well,
call that?
well, cost of.
Well, I mean, we can do it for, the group we don't represent. Certainly, we can do it for the group we do represent.
The mills, I think, are a big sore point amongst a lot of people. Even though it's $15 or whatever it is a month, it's still $15.
It would be a year.
Can use in their own, or $15 a year.
A year.
Right. In 2000, what was it, 10 or 11, when 26% mill levy increased, I think my property tax bill went up $180. And it didn't go back down. It stayed, 3 or 4 years, $180 higher than it was the previous year.
I would be in favor of a 2 mil adjustment.
So or how sustainable is that? I mean, that's part of the.
It's going to affect everything you do now, throws everything else you're going to
On the out years, yes,
Right.
you're absolutely
And
right.
and so, if something were to happen, we didn't get the amount of assumptions and everything else we were doing. Let's say this is a mid-year look.
Yep.
If something were to happen, you're going to be taking reserves to sustain what you already have. And then you're looking at doing it's a policy decision.
It is a
You
policy.
talk about-
But it's a policy decision, which I think we need to see visually what the impact
Sure.
is.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So is that something within the next, week? I mean, we don't have to talk about it in a meeting, but is that something that you can get to everybody to say, here is what the impact of this in future years, potentially?
And the other thing is that we just bothered to bring Bruce Kimmel down
Yes, we did.
from Minneapolis to provide us that information this evening. And is that something that within the next week he can figure into those calculations and refigure?
If I understand
Please.
what is being asked, we're asking if we roll the mill back, we roll back 2 mills.
2 mills.
It's just $260,000 to the city at large.
We would like to remove $260,000 out of our
Every year.
budget and build a budget and talk about what that looks like.
That's gone for every year, because you rolled it back.
Mhm.
So I would have to assume it's gone for every year.
Well, it was put in for every year, so it's only fair that it come out for every year. I mean, again, it was the bond and interest fund that suffered the increase. And again, those people still, as we talked, are paying their bills, right? And there's nothing
There's
we
a
can-
few.
Some of them.
But there's nothing we can do. It takes 3 years for the county.
We can
to-
pressure the county like we have been, but other
Yeah,
than
but
that.
there's nothing that they're going to do, no matter how bad we beg,
I think,
for them to take any action before they can. So,
Well, I didn't mean to, well, I did mean to open up that can of worms, but I don't think we have to come up with a resolution this evening. I'd like to see those numbers, because if they go where I think they're gonna go, and I look back at the projections for the 2014 budget, I have a feeling they're gonna come in right in line with that, which means that we're not seeing an adverse impact on our original numbers. And that's just my own personal, idea on that, and, I'd just like to see those numbers. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah. Certainly would be interested in seeing the numbers. What I think what it's going to show us is what that doesn't do is allow us to maintain the capital balance equity that we have right now in the ratio. It's going to lower those numbers. It also is going to change everything that we have in place that we learn, or not have in place, but every plans for, the capital improvement projects that we have placed, the cash funded that are looking at this year, that's going to change. It changes every single thing. It sounds really good to say, let's drop 2 mil. That's going to save you, Larry just had a great example, it would have saved Larry approximately $15 per month. But what that actually is going to do in per month. But what that actually is going to do in the long-term planning is allow us not to sustain the growth that we have in place thus far. It's not going to allow us to tackle the capital improvement projects that we've identified in a manner that we had hoped to be able to accomplish. And it's also going to provide a lack of service and a hit to what the citizens are going to see on their day-to-day basis. So if that's going to be the result, then I don't know how that couldn't be.
Well, $260,000 in the grand scheme of things, especially given our budget, is not that great of a number. It's
But it hits
not.
every piece, so you.
And if it's,
what do you mean, that's every piece?
if it's your,
If you pull it here, you have to.
So does the 230 that you just approved for the.
Absolutely,
for the pay
without
increase.
making any change. So you're right, you could say, actually, I don't want the city employees to pay anything, and we're just going to lower the mill for this year, and then that's gonna work out. Next year, we're gonna have more projects, so then I'll come back, say, we actually needed those 2 mil back, because, Laura, if I remember right, when we tackled the wastewater treatment plant and the Grand Road improvements, there were planned mill levy increases
There
that
were.
were part of those that we've been able to avoid.
For the
Yeah.
streets, yeah, there was a
So
2
both of
mil
those
increase
pieces
that we
would be able to
avoided.
do so. So, yes, it's great, I would love to have a lower tax bill, and then at the end of the day, we would see what happened when they didn't increase the tax bill that resulted in the 25% increase. Unfunded capital improvement projects that created an issue that we're now having to address.
Yeah, actually, let me interject something here. When we talk about the 4 budget goals, which is promote economic development, and that's $260,000 less that we've got to spend across the city organization, and that will impact, economic development.
let's see the numbers first. That's all I'm saying. Let's see the numbers first.
Well, why don't you put in the 230?
Hold on, Steve interrupted me, I know that gave you your cue to interrupt me also, so, everybody, please, just, let's all be respectful of each other's time, and yeah, allow people to take a break, a breath. But, economic development, quality of life, if it's going to, infrastructure, and this impacts everything except for fiscal stewardship, and the impact on fiscal stewardship for the individual homeowner might be impacted, but I don't mind seeing the numbers, but, and I don't mind rolling back the taxes, but we've put ourselves in this position where we can actually start ticking needed, especially infrastructure upgrades, taken care of. We've got a CIP plan that's going to be presented, is it before the next council meeting, or is it, it's one in August, isn't it?
It is one of the ones.
the plan, yes.
Yeah. Where we're going to start making these plans, partly based on some of the assumptions that we got from Bruce Kimmel this evening, I would imagine.
Correct.
I think this argument is kind of coming down to me to a basic lack of understanding of whose money this is. I mean, it's the citizens' money. We are appropriating the citizens' money through property taxes to fund these projects, to fund our operations. And it's.
And they get clean water and
Well, wait a second.
sanitary